Hey everybody, welcome to The Deep Dive. Today we're going to be tackling, you guys have been asking for a deep dive on faith. And we found just the source for you, a sermon by Dr. Charles Stanley called Learning to Walk by Faith, The Basics. And whether you're, a devout believer or just kind of curious about this whole concept of faith, I think you're going to find some really, really interesting stuff here.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting about Dr. Stanley is he's been a pastor for over 6 decades. He's this well-known author and teacher, so he really comes at this topic with a lot of experience. But what I appreciate is that even if you're not Christian or don't agree with everything he says, his insights on faith can still resonate on a human level, you
Yeah.
know? It's about that leap we take that trust in something bigger than ourselves, which can apply to so many areas of life. Exactly. It's like when you're considering a big career change. You know that safe option is to just stay put, but something inside pushes you to take that risk, to
Yeah.
trust that it'll all work out even though you don't have all the answers. Is that what Stanley's talking about with that walking by faith, not by sight thing?
Yeah, that's a great example. And Scanley goes deep into this idea, explaining that it's about living a life guided by trust in a higher power rather than just solely relying on logic,
Hmm.
emotions, or what we can see right in front of us. He uses the example of the Apostle Paul, who faced a ton of adversity, but never wavered in his faith. But this idea, it isn't unique to Christianity. Like, think about the Buddhist concept of karma, where actions have consequences beyond our immediate understanding, or the Stoic idea of accepting what you can't control, surrendering to a larger order. It's all about letting go of the need for absolute certainty and embracing a bigger picture. Okay, so it's about having that foundation of trust, that inner compass guiding you, even when the path ahead isn't totally clear. But Dr. Stanley goes beyond just passively believing, right? He says faith has to be more than just a thought. It needs to be an action.
You got it. He actually brings in the original Greek meaning of the word believe to show that it implies action. It's an active commitment that's reflected in what we do, not just what we think. So it's less about, I believe in eating healthy, and more about actually choosing the salad over the burger, putting faith into practice in those everyday choices.
So it's about aligning your actions with what you believe, even when it's tough. But what does that look like in a practical sense? Does Stanley give us any guidance on how to actually walk by faith in daily life?
He does. He lays out this sort of spiritual workout routine, starting with acknowledging a higher presence first thing each day. It's like setting the tone, reminding yourself that you're not going it alone.
Okay, so it's like a daily check-in, a moment to seek guidance and connect with that inner compass before diving into the day's chaos. But what if you're not used to praying or meditating? Does Stanley address that?
Absolutely. He suggests making specific requests and then paying attention to how things unfold. He even says that even when the answer is no, it's an opportunity to learn and grow, to see things from a different perspective. It's about recognizing those divine detours, those moments that might feel like setbacks, but could be leading you somewhere even better.
Interesting. So even in those no's, there's a lesson to be learned or redirection. I like that. He also talks about studying scripture as part of this daily practice, right?
Right. For Stanley, diving deeper into scripture is about understanding the nature of God and the promises made. It's about building that trust through knowledge and understanding. But, for someone unfamiliar with the Bible, you could think of it like studying the philosophy of Stoicism or Buddhism. The more you understand the principles, the more likely you are to trust and apply them in your life.
It's like reading the manual before trying to operate a complex machine. The more you understand how it works, the less intimidating and more effective it becomes.
But Stanley also talks about this idea of discouragement being the real opposite of faith, right? I'm curious to hear more about that.
He makes a point that setbacks and challenges are inevitable. That's just life. But it's discouragement that leads to doubt, to that feeling of being lost and giving up. He believes that these difficult moments are actually opportunities to strengthen faith. Think about it. When you push through a tough workout, you come out stronger on the other side. It's the same with faith.
So instead of seeing those challenges as punishments or failures, we can reframe them as opportunities for growth and resilience, like a spiritual weightlifting session for our faith. But that's easier said than done right.
Oh, for sure. Stanley isn't sugarcoating it. He acknowledges that this walking by faith thing is a lifelong journey, not a quick fix. There will be times when you stumble, question things, and maybe even want to give up. So what does he suggest for those moments when doubt and discouragement start to creep in? Where do you find the strength to keep going?
Welcome back to our deep dive on learning to walk by faith with Dr. Charles Stanley. We've been exploring what it means to trust in something beyond the immediately tangible, to let go of the need to control everything.
Right, that idea of walking by faith, not by sight, really stuck with me. And we've been unpacking Stanley's ideas about faith being an active commitment, that spiritual workout routine of connecting with a higher power daily, studying the principles and viewing challenges as opportunities for growth.
Exactly. But it's important to acknowledge that this journey isn't about achieving some perfect, unwavering state of belief. Stanley is very clear that doubt is part of the human experience. It's what we do with those doubts that matters.
So it's normal to question things, to wrestle with those doubts.
Yeah.
But how do we keep those doubts from pulling us off course?
Stanley encourages bringing those doubts to the table, to that higher power you're seeking. It's like having an honest conversation with a trusted friend or mentor. Sometimes just acknowledging those doubts out loud can help lessen their grip.
So it's about being authentic, both with ourselves and with whatever we define as our higher power. Not trying to pretend we have all the answers. I like that. He also stresses the importance of community, right? Not trying to go it alone on this journey.
Absolutely. Stanley emphasizes surrounding yourself with people who support your journey, who understand those struggles and can offer encouragement. Think about it. When you're training for a marathon, it's a lot easier with a running buddy or a supportive group. Same goes for faith.
It's like having a spiritual support system, people who can help you through those tough miles when you just want to quit. He also mentions finding mentors, people who can offer guidance from their own experiences.
Yes. Having someone who's been there who can offer a different perspective can be invaluable. Think of those wise elders in many traditions who offer counsel and support based on their own journeys. It's about recognizing that we don't have to figure everything out on our own.
That makes a lot of sense. We've talked about doubt, but what about fear? How does Stanley address that very real emotion, especially when taking a leap of faith can feel so scary?
He acknowledges that fear is powerful, and it can definitely hold us back. But he points out that fear often comes from a lack of trust. If you trust the process, trust that you're being guided, then the fear starts to loosen its grip.
So building trust is key. But how do you do that, especially when you're facing a situation that feels completely out of your control?
Stanley suggests focusing on the positive, on those times when things have worked out, when you've been guided or supported in unexpected ways. It's like building that trust muscle, reminding yourself that you've gotten through tough times before.
It's about choosing to believe in a positive outcome, even when the present circumstances feel scary. That takes a lot of courage. Another key concept Stanley emphasizes is obedience. What role does that play in this walking by faith thing?
For Stanley, true faith isn't just about believing, it's about acting on that belief. It's about aligning your actions with your values, even when it's hard.
So it's not just about talking the talk, but walking the walk, putting your faith into action.
Exactly. And he's clear that this doesn't mean blind obedience to a set of rules. It's about listening to that inner compass, to those principles that resonate with your deepest self, and making choices that align with them.
So it's about discerning what feels right for you, what aligns with your values, and then having the courage to act on it, even if it goes against the grain. But what about those times when we mess up, when we make choices that aren't aligned with our values or beliefs? How do we deal with those moments?
Stanley is very clear that we all make mistakes. We're human, after all. But he emphasizes that those mistakes don't define us. He talks about the concept of grace, that unconditional love and acceptance that allows us to start over, to learn from our mistakes and move forward.
It's that feeling of being forgiven, of being given another chance. I think that's something we all crave on some level. But how do you access that grace, especially when you're feeling really down on yourself?
Stanley suggests practices like prayer meditation, or simply being out in nature, connecting with something bigger than ourselves. It's about recognizing that we're not alone in those moments, that there's a force of love and support surrounding us, even when we can't see it.
It's that feeling of being held and supported, even in our darkest moments. It's powerful stuff. He also talks about the transformative power of faith, right? How it can actually change your life.
That's where it gets really exciting. He believes that faith isn't just a mental exercise, it's a dynamic force that can shape your reality. Think about the placebo effect. When you believe something will work, it often does, even if there's no logical explanation. Stanley believes faith works in a similar way.
So it's about harnessing the power of belief to create positive change in your life. But that sounds almost too good to be true, doesn't it?
He acknowledges that it can be hard to grasp, especially in a world that often prioritizes logic and reason. But he points to countless stories of people whose lives have been transformed by faith, people who have overcome incredible odds. found healing and forgiveness, and experienced a level of peace and joy that defies explanation.
So he's saying it's not just a theory, it's a lived reality for many people. But what about those who might be skeptical, who might be thinking, okay, that's great for them, but I'm just not wired that way?
Stanley wouldn't argue with that. He recognizes that faith is a very personal thing. It's about finding what resonates with you, what speaks to your heart and your experience. It's not a one-size-fits-all proposition.
It's about being open to the possibility, even if you don't have all the answers right.
Exactly. It's about allowing yourself to explore different perspectives, to see the world through a different lens. Who knows what you might discover?
This has been such an insightful conversation. We've explored the role of doubt and fear, the importance of community and grace, the transformative power of faith.
And we've talked about practical ways to cultivate a deeper sense of trust and connection, to put those principles into action in everyday life.
But before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I'd love to hear your takeaways. What's resonating with you most from Stanley's message?
For me, it's that reminder that faith isn't about being perfect or having all the answers. It's about the journey, the willingness to keep learning and growing even when we stumble. It's about embracing those divine detours and trusting that we're being guided even when we can't see the whole path. What about you?
I think what struck me most is that sense of hope that Stanley conveys. It's not about ignoring the challenges of life. It's about finding a source of strength and resilience to get through them. It's about knowing that you're not alone, that there's a force of love and support surrounding you, even when you can't see it.
Beautifully said. And I think that's a message that can resonate with anyone, regardless of their religious background or beliefs. It's a universal truth that we all need that sense of hope, that belief in something bigger than ourselves to navigate the ups and downs of life.
Absolutely. And in our final installment, we'll explore how this walking by faith philosophy can help us find peace and joy, even in a world that often feels chaotic and uncertain.
We'll also delve into Stanley's thoughts on the ultimate purpose of faith and the eternal hope it offers. So stay tuned for part 3 of our exploration of learning to walk by faith with Dr. Charles Stanley.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've been on quite a journey with Dr. Charles Stanley and his ideas on learning to walk by faith. We've covered a lot, from facing our doubts and fears, to finding strength in community and understanding that faith is an active choice, not just a passive belief.
Yeah, we really dug into the practical side of it too, those everyday choices we make, how we view challenges, and the power of trusting in something bigger than ourselves, even when we don't have all the answers. But there's one more piece of this puzzle we need to explore, that idea of finding peace and joy, even when the world feels anything but peaceful.
Right, because let's face it, life can be pretty chaotic and unpredictable. Everywhere you look, there's something to worry about. So how does this walking by faith approach help us navigate that?
Stanley acknowledges that we can't just eliminate all the problems and hardships in life. But he believes that true peace isn't about the absence of those things. It's about finding that source of calm and strength within yourself, a sense of security that can't be shaken by external events.
So it's like building an inner sanctuary, a place of peace that you can always return to no matter what storms are raging outside.
That's a great way to put it. And Stanley emphasizes that this peace isn't something we have to force or manufacture. It's a natural byproduct of connecting with something larger than ourselves. Think about the feeling you get when you're immersed in nature, listening to music that moves you or experiencing a deep sense of love and connection. It's that feeling of being grounded, of being part of something bigger.
It's that feeling of belonging, of knowing that you're not alone in the vastness of the universe. But how do we cultivate that sense of peace in a practical sense? When the anxieties and worries start creeping in, where do you turn?
Stanley suggests a few practices, things like prayer meditation, or simply spending time in quiet reflection. It's about finding what works for you, what helps you connect with that source of peace within. And he also talks about the importance of surrender, letting go of the things you can't control, and trusting that there's a higher power at work, even when you can't see it.
It's like acknowledging that you're not in the driver's seat all the time. There's a bigger plan unfolding, and sometimes the best thing you can do is just go and trust the process.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that you're not carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. There's something bigger holding you, supporting you, guiding you.
And alongside peace, Stanley also talks about finding true joy, but not that fleeting happiness that comes and goes with external circumstances. He's talking about something deeper, something more lasting.
He describes it as a joy that transcends circumstances, a deep sense of contentment and gratitude that permeates your whole being. It's that feeling of being fully alive, of appreciating the beauty and wonder of life, even in the midst of challenges.
It's like a light that shines from within, illuminating even the darkest corners of your experience. But how do you cultivate that kind of joy when life is throwing curveballs left and right?
Stanley believes that joy is a natural byproduct of living in alignment with your values, of pursuing a life of purpose and meaning. He encourages finding those things that light you up, those activities that bring you a sense of fulfillment and connection, and making them a priority.
So it's about nurturing your passions, those things that spark joy and make you feel truly alive. And he also talks about gratitude, right? Appreciating the good things in your life, even the small things, as a way to cultivate joy.
Absolutely. Taking time to acknowledge the blessings in your life, both big and small, can shift your whole perspective. It's about focusing on what you have rather than what you lack.
It's about training your mind to see the good, to find the silver lining, even when things are tough. This has been such a rich exploration of faith, but I'm curious, what about the big picture? What does Stanley say about the ultimate purpose of it all? Where does this journey lead?
He talks about the concept of eternal hope, the belief that there's something beyond this physical existence, a realm of peace and joy that transcends the limitations of our human experience.
It's like a glimpse into the infinite, a promise of something greater that awaits us beyond the horizon of this life.
And Stanley emphasizes that this hope isn't just wishful thinking or a fairy tale. He believes it's grounded in the very nature of God, in the promises that have been revealed throughout history and continue to be revealed in the lives of people today.
So even in the face of death, faith offers a sense of comfort and continuity, a belief that this isn't the end of the story.
Exactly. It's that trust that there's something more, something bigger than we can fully comprehend waiting for us on the other side.
This has been such a thought-provoking conversation. We've explored the idea of walking by faith, not by sight, and how that approach can help us navigate the challenges of life, find peace and joy, and ultimately connect with something larger than ourselves.
We've talked about practical steps we can take to cultivate a deeper sense of trust and connection, and we've glimpsed the potential for transformation that lies within each of us.
But as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to emphasize that the journey of faith is a deeply personal one. It's about finding what resonates with you, what speaks to your heart and your experience.
It's about being open to the possibility of something more, even if you don't have all the answers. It's about taking that leap of faith and trusting the process.
Thank you for joining us on this exploration of learning to walk by faith with Dr. Charles Stanley. We hope you've been inspired and encouraged to continue your own journey of discovery.
And remember, no matter where you are on that journey, you're not alone. There's a force of love and support guiding you every step of the way.